my bard. The Botox is wearing off. Glitter! Get me more glitter! Oh, oh, hello. You seem to have caught me at an inopportune moment, Shakespeare and I. Well, I suppose it's just as well. This is Tootight Lautrec, and welcome back to the Shakey Sonnet Show. We're here in the Sonnetarium at the bottom of the down staircase in the permanently sequestered remainders section of an unnamed local library, which may or may not have some lion couchants couchanting on the steps with their nice tight young skin. But in any case, welcome to the Shakey Sonnet. So today we're looking at Sonnet 22, and we're going to grapple with that thorniest of all subjects, age. My glass shall not persuade me I am old, indeed. What I really need is a new mirror. Well, speaking of age, apropos of nothing, I'll tell you a little bit of a story. I was once in a locker room full of men during my younger days when I was a fluffer for the team. And anyway, there were two young gay men in the corner whispering to one another. And of course, I eavesdropped because, you know, one must pay attention to all the wonders that are in the world. And the first young man said, "Do you know Julio?" And the second young man said, "Yes." And the first young man said, "Well, he's 28, isn't he?" And the second young man said, "He is. He's 28, but he looks 27. True story. You can make of that what you will. And while I am over 5,000 years old, dear sweet Lillian has assured me that I don't look a day over 3,000. So thank you for that, Lillian. And if you're watching, hello, and many kisses to you. So today we get to the thorny subject of age in Sonnet 22. And it begins with, "My glass shall not persuade me I am old." And it's worth reminding ourselves that historians generally agree that the sonnets were written between 1593 and 1600. And since Shakespeare was born in 1564, he may have been all of 29 years old when he wrote this sonnet. And at the oldest, he would have been 36, which isn't exactly when one begins to experience the ill of eld, but be that as it may. Of course, I've sought some help in this, and I'll move my mirror to the side. I sought some help in this, and if I have never sung the praises before of Hyder Edward Rollins, who compiled a variorum of the sonnets, which was published in 1944, I'll sing or croak his praises right now. I found this copy. This is a photocopied copy because I found there are two volumes, and I copied both of the copies from the library at NYU, the Bopst library there. It's a tremendously difficult volume to find because it's not in reprints, and a variorum is a list of all the commentators who have commentated or who have commented on, it could be a play or a sonnets, but in this case these variorum are devoted to the sonnets. There are others devoted to each individual play. But in this, Hyder Edward Rollins notes that other commentators have said that this idea of a poet saying that he's old when he's nowhere near old is an old poetic device, and most people blame it on Petrarch. But there are other instances of it as well. Samuel Daniel also did this in his sonnet series, and he was only 29 years old. Richard Barnfield was only 20 when he wrote his sonnets, and he uses the same sort of device of an old person talking to a younger person. And Michael Drayton, also at 31 years old, used the same device about an older person. I'm so old and listen to me. But, and it's a big but, there's more going on in Sonnet 22 than just age. And I would say, if I were to piece together these sonnets as a continuous story, I would say that Sonnet 22 looks to me like the first physical consummation of the love relationship that's been going on for the first 21 sonnets. We are one body inside another, and I mean really. So let's just take a look at it and see if you might agree with what I'm saying. 22. My glass shall not persuade me I am old, so long as youth and thou are of one date. But when in thee time's furrows I behold, then look I death my days should expiate. For all that beauty that doth cover thee is but the seemly raiment of my heart, which in thy breast doth live, as thine in me. How can I then be elder than thou art? O therefore, love, be of thyself so wary as I, not for myself, but for thee will, bearing thy heart, which I will keep so chary as tender nurse her babe from faring ill. Presume not on thy heart, when mine is slain. Thou gavest me thine, not to give back again. So again, it's a bit of tortured syntax here, and we'll go through it line by line just to clarify some things. My glass, obviously, glass means mirror. My mirror shall not persuade me I am old. So long as youth and thou are of one date, as long as you're young, as long as I can look at your sweet, young, tight face, I won't feel old. So long as youth and thou are of one date. But when in thee time's furrows I behold, here we have Shakespeare's mortal fear of wrinkles once again. If he sees, or if the narrator sees, time's furrows, wrinkles on this young person's brow, then look I death my days should expiate. And it's a very strange way of saying, then I'll just lay down and die. My days should expiate. My expiration date will be up. I will die when I start to see you looking old. Which is a bit hyperbolic, but here we are with the poet. So let him do his thing. For all that beauty, here's the second quatrain. For all that beauty that doth cover thee. Yes, that's right. All that beauty. All that beauty covering you. All of that beauty is but the seemly raiment of my heart. The raiment, the clothing of my heart. All that beauty that I see there covers my heart. It clothes my heart. Which in thy breast doth live. So my heart lives in your breast, as thine in me. So I'm in love with you, and you're in love with me. And here's the very first time that we hear the narrator accepting the fact that he or she might be loved in return. So this is quite exciting, this sonnet. My heart lives in you, your heart lives in me. And since my heart lives in you and your heart lives in me, how can I then be elder than thou art? We must be the same age then, because if my heart lives in you and your heart lives in me, we're the same age. So all my worries are over. Oh, therefore, love, and here's the third quatrain. So having established that we are one, here's the warning. Therefore, love, be of thyself so wary, so careful. Be of thyself so wary as I, not for myself, but for thee will. You take care of my heart that lives in you, and I'll take care of your heart that lives in me. And he continues on that. Therefore, love, be of thyself so wary as I, not for myself, but for thee will, bearing thy heart, because I hold your heart, which I will keep so chary, so dear and carefully, as tender nurse her babe from faring ill. I'll hold your heart in me as if it's a tender infant just born, and I'll carry it around so tenderly that it will never ever come to harm, because you've entrusted me with your heart, and I am entrusting you with my heart. Presume not, here's the couplet, presume not on thy heart when mine is slain. Gets a bit grim here. When I'm dead, don't think you can take your heart back, because it will still be in my breast. I will still keep your heart even in death. Thou gavest me thine, you gave me your heart, not to give back again. So don't ask for it back, because it's mine forever, and I'll love you forever. I'll take it to the grave with me, which is kind of nice, but a little grim. But it's and this whole idea is quite interesting too, and it's similar to Sidney's "My true love hath my heart, and I have his," which, if you don't know that poem, I'm going to include a link to it, because I did do a lip sync of that poem, "My true love hath my heart, and I have his," which is from Sidney's Arcadia, or the old Arcadia. And although it's not my best lip sync, it's a cracking good poem, so you should follow that for sure. Follow the link and just listen to it. Starlight is the person who's saying it. So here we have it. We two are one. It's a consummation. I am in you, and you are in me. Metaphorically, it's saying, my heart is in you, and your heart is in me. But it seems to me that this is the first time we have an actual, our bodies are together, we are one. And just as one might do in a marriage, and metonymy and metaphor aside, it does present it as though it's a literal exchange of one body part for another. And this is the first example we have of the narrator's certainty of being loved. Now, can we tell if this is a male or a female who is speaking, or whether the beloved is a male or a female? It seems to me it could go either way. If we look at, if we're going to look at this as a story, and if we want to simplify things for the simple mind, we have one narrator and one beloved. And here we are at the 22nd poem in this series. And we've seen a few instances where the beloved is definitely a male. And in Sonnet 20, we've seen where the beloved and the lover are both male. So it's easy to see how we can then be persuaded that perhaps these poems are an expression now at this point of physical love between two men. Also, and keeping in mind that sex between two men was capital punishment and they could be put to death as a result of it, but also keeping in mind that, a lot of things go under the radar and people do what they want to do, and that doesn't necessarily mean that Shakespeare was gay if he did do this, but sometimes, Shakespeare on the down low, you never know. So these poems also were not published by Shakespeare. Shakespeare did not publish these poems, so it's not like he actually meant these to get out, or we don't know what the circumstances were around the publication of them. But we also don't know, they were published in 1609, and Shakespeare died in 1616. And I don't know if there's any evidence to any kind of a reaction by Shakespeare to the publication of these poems, whether there is an avowal or a denial or anything. If anybody does know anything about that, or knows of some place where I could look to find the information, please let me know, because I do find that quite interesting that these were published in 1609. Shakespeare didn't die till 1616. I wonder what would you do if suddenly a group of your poems that you'd spent a lot of time and effort on were published as your poems? Wouldn't you have some sort of reaction, or wouldn't there be some sort of reaction somewhere recorded? I don't know. Maybe I just haven't done my homework well enough. But for the Puritans who say, well, that's preposterous. There are two men. It's obviously two men. One body and another. Give me a break. Between two men, it's impossible. Well, I would only then direct them to my two friends, Michael Fitzpatrick and Patrick Fitzmichael, and they could straighten it out among themselves. So I'm not saying that this is proof positive. I'm only pointing out how it's possible that one could come to that conclusion, as many people have. Are there other possibilities? Absolutely. This could be a man to a woman. This could be a woman to a man. This could be a woman to a woman. And if we don't take the literal aspects literally, the physical aspects literally, and why should we? We could create all kinds of possible scenarios for this type of poem. As an individual poem, if it's an individual isolated poem, it's quite romantic, it's kind of sexy, kind of creepy, kind of gruesome with that couplet. So if there's ever a zombie Shakespeare, this would be my my vote to see this as zombie Shakespeare. But it is convincing and satisfying. What do you think? Please let me know if you have any thoughts on this sonnet in particular or the series as we're going along. Are you in one camp or another? Should these be read singularly or should they be read in a series? And if we're being, if you have a much more innovative or interesting idea of how these are working out in terms of the story of the sonnets and the story that they're telling, please share, and we can discuss that in the comment section. So until next time, world, wonder, pay attention. I'm Tootight Lautrec. Mwah.